So this is going to be my very first YouTube tutorial, and I greatly appreciate you guys for tuning in. I have been doing Blender for I think about 2 years now. Wait, it's 2025. So I started in 2021 October-ish, and it's been a long journey. We've learned so much. I think that I'm still going to consider myself a beginner, but I see that people need more tutorials, and so that's what I'm gonna do here today. Currently, right now, I'm using Blender 3.6, but for the most part, anything that I show you today is going to work in later versions of Blender. Granted, I think everything within Blender 3.0 in general. However, just to be on the safe side, everything after 3.6 is going to essentially work with some minor differences here and there. Don't include 4.0. So let's go ahead and get started essentially. Over here in the bottom left hand corner, you will see any of the keys that I might press along the way, but you should be able to follow along. Any add-ons that you have are going to be over here on the right side. As you can see, I clicked the screencast keys and went ahead and turned that on for you guys. Up here it says file. You've got your open new project. Typically you'll be hitting general, open any projects that you have. It'll also show any of your recents. Save as, import. Typically you'll go to import FBX to import a new object. Export, if you're trying to export this out to, let's say, Unity or any other type of 3D software. Typically you'll do that in FBX or GLTF. Sometimes you'll use OBJ. You don't use any of these other ones too often. It really just depends on what it is that you're using Blender for. Now, just to go ahead and get into some of the basics. We just got some of the extra stuff, but nothing too complicated that you can't follow. So if you're using a mouse, I really pray that you guys are using this another wireless mouse or even a wired mouse instead of a mouse pad. I promise you this tutorial is not for people using a mouse pad at all. I personally do not recommend it. I've tried it myself and it is definitely a lot more complicated. For beginners, get a mouse. Definitely get you a mouse. It doesn't even have to be a super expensive mouse, extra decorative mouse. Just something that has two different clicks on it and a mouse wheel. So if we click the middle mouse button where the mouse wheel is, we can actually pan around like this around our object. Our right click is going to bring up our object context menu. We'll get into that a little bit later at some point. But just so that way you can see what's there. That's all that's there. Obviously, your regular click button is to click an object. So anytime it's highlighted in orange like this, that means that the object has been clicked or selected, I should say. If you're using a keyboard, and I don't see why you wouldn't be, the tab button is going to allow you to go into edit mode. I have a particular plugin, so whenever I hit tab, it actually gives me a plugin wheel, but I will discuss what my plugins are in another video. So we can go to just regular edit. This is how it's going to look once you hit the tab button. You'll already see the faces and vertices are all selected. If we go ahead and click out, it's gray. And so we would think that we don't have any ability to do anything, but if we click one of these vertices, you'll see it's highlighted. If you click another vertice, it automatically goes away. But if we want to click both of these vertices, we hit the shift button and then click. And then now we have multiple selected. And if you select all on one face, all the vertices here, it means that you selected the face. Now in the top left hand corner, you have different selection tools. So you can click vertice, edge, or face. So if we click edge, right, and we click off, you'll see that this is highlighted white. And if we shift click, we can see that when we click all of them, it eventually selects the face. Or we can switch it to face select mode and just select our face. And yes, we can select multiple faces at once using the shift button. Another cool trick, if you go over any object that you have in the scene and you hit the A button, you select all the faces of this object and anything connected to it. because we're in edit mode, oh, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and show you this. If you hit Shift A, I like to call this the summon button. So whenever we want to summon a shape, it will show up here. So you have different objects that you can select. If I go ahead and select another cube, it's already been placed here. If I press G, because it's selected, I can just move it, but how do we place it? Just left click. So I can press G again, move it somewhere else, left click. How we move an object around our scene. Now, I want to go back. I can press Control Z, so I can undo any of my movements or things that I've done to the scene. I'm really thinking of all of this as I go because it's become such muscle memory that I don't have to think about it, but because I'm doing this particular tutorial, I am really just like, what can I do that I think that would be necessary for a beginner to know? What else? So if we hit G, we can move it along the different axes. So we have the Y and Z axis right here, right? And so if we hit Y, we will move along the Y axis. If we select GX, we will only move along the X axis. And I'm assuming that you already know what's next. If we hit GZ, we will move along the Z axis. Now, I know that sounds like it might be a lot, but really, all you have to remember is G is for grab. So we want to grab it and move it. G for move. But GY moves along the Y axis. GX moves along the X axis. GZ moves along the Z axis. If I want to move all the objects in my scene, and I'm only doing this just so that way you can have a better visual, I'm going to move that object here. If I hit the A button, everything is selected, and if we put GX, it still moves everything on the X axis. If I hit Y, Z axis if I hit Z. Alright, let's see. What would the next best thing be? Rotating. We can rotate along the X axis, Z axis, and Y axis. It's the same principle. You hit the major button for rotate, which would be R is for rotate, G is for grab, so remember that. With R is for rotate, we can still hit any of the axis buttons, X, Y, or Z, and it will move in the corresponding direction. I think that's it. No. Well, I guess this is more of a modeling thing now, but let's go into this real basic modeling. So let's say we want to move. Oh wait, let me actually show you the selection tool. So with the selection tool, you can go ahead and select these vertices. It only selects the vertices that are within view. But if you hit Alt Z, you can see through it, and then you can select other vertices that you wouldn't otherwise be able to unless you were on that particular side. Also, we have to remember that our object is duplicated, so I'm going to delete one of the objects just to make sure we're not moving what we shouldn't be. But you can do Alt-Z, you can see through the object. Right now I'm trying to select. It's not selected, otherwise it would be highlighted. But if we go like this, and then go outside the X-ray mode, you can see it's selected. Alt-Z is for X-ray mode. And let's go ahead and select the top vertices. And personally, I like to switch the selection tool to the selection lasso instead of just the selection box, just because you can select more than just in a square. It gives you more control essentially. But yeah, if we want to just move these vertices, we can with G. If we want to rotate these vertices, we can with R. But let me show you something that we can do with E. What do you think that E stands for? E stands for extrude. So if we want to extrude, we press E, and now it automatically moves on the Z axis. If we want to make this smaller than here, let's say we were making a little house, we would press scale. How do we do scale? S. So S is for scale, and we can scale it down this way, scale it up, and we can even make sure that we're scaling specifically on a specific axis. So we want to scale on the Y axis to make this into a little roof. We can scale this on the X axis. Now it's a milk carton. And we can scale this on the Z axis. But you see, nothing really happens here. So you just got to use common sense, for lack of a better word, common sense. But yeah, scale this back on the x-axis like that. And you know what? We're going to just continue with the thought of making this a little house. So if we wanted to, we can press the tab button. Or actually, you can't press the tab button because you don't have that particular plugin. But like I said, I'm going to go back and show you guys the plugins that I do have and utilize regularly. But we want to get out of X-ray mode, select this face, right? Let's say this is the front of the house. We can select, how do I want to do this? So we can do I, which is invert, and we'll make an inverted face like this. And you'll get these other faces as well. However, what we're going to do, and that could technically be a window, but I'm just going to hit the extrude button, extrude inward, and then I'm going to zoom in using the mouse wheel. I do shift, mouse click to just move sideways so that way I'm not rotating, because if I only do the middle mouse button, then I'll rotate. But shift and using the middle mouse button allows you to just move left or right. But I want to make sure that all these interfaces are selected as well, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this more door. So I'm going to hit Shift, Alt, and then click on this little edge here, and then that selects all the faces that are inside. If you need to repeat that, go back, replay that part of the video, but Shift, Alt, click selects all the faces. So if I were to do that here, selects all the faces in this direction. But I don't need that selected right now, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to scale this inward on the Y axis, make it more door shaped, right? And then I'm going to press GZ to move it down, and now we've got a door, or at least a doorway. Now it is beautiful. We made us a little house. Should I go into texturing on this video? I don't think so. I'm not going to do texture on this video. I'm going to do a different video specifically for texturing for you guys. I'm trying to make sure that I didn't forget anything as far as the basics go. So today, what did we go over? We went over how to extrude, how to rotate, how to pan left or right, as well as around an object. Oh, if you happen to have a numpad, here's a cool little thing. If you happen to have a numpad, you can always hit 1 to go in this direction. 2 is kind of just like incremental, but let's go back to 1. 3 is the other face. So technically 1 is your front facing way of your object, and you can always change the orientation of your object later on if you don't like which way it is. But 1 is the front, 3 is the side, 7 is the top, 9 is the opposite. So if I did 1 and then pressed 9 here, it would just go to the opposite side. If I go to 3 and then press 9, it'll just go to the back of that object. And I'm just going to use the mouse wheel to get back to where I want to. So rotation, extruding, grabbing, moving vertices, moving faces. How do you delete something? That's probably something important. Press X. So if you select the face, press X. X is the delete button. It'll give you an option if you want to delete the vertices of this piece of the object, delete the edges or the faces. These ones you'll start to understand over time. I recommend definitely experimenting with them, but essentially the main ones you're going to need are vertices, edges, and faces for deleting. If you want to delete only the faces, that would still leave edge. So we deleted only the face on this. So now we have just the edges. Now, if we were to go back, Control Z, right? We've got our face back, but let's say we go back to X and we select delete faces. It's still going to do that. If we select only edges and faces, we've removed a lot, right? And that's actually because this is connected to this, right? So if this edge doesn't exist, this face can't exist. Right? That makes sense? What else? Is there anything else that you guys want to learn that I didn't go over today? I would be happy to go over that with you. Just let me know down below in the comments. I'm going to try to make more tutorial videos like this. I do hope that this was helpful for some beginners. I'm going to try to come up with a beginner project that I think would be fun and still give you a good amount of different things that you can utilize for your own projects in the future. I appreciate you watching this video. If you could subscribe, comment below, and I'll also have any other socials that I decide to post here for you guys to continue this community. Thanks again. This is my first video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you later.